Okay, yet another vocabulary class. We're looking at books now, and anyone who wants the whole lesson just needs to go to my website and buy the course for $9.99. You have lifetime membership then, and you'll always be able to watch these classes from beginning to end. Okay, so you can talk about a riveting plot. Yeah, the plot is the storyline. I suppose that's another way you could say it, but we usually say the plot. Yeah, the storyline, what happens in the story, the events of the story, the plot. And you can talk about a riveting plot, an engrossing plot, an enthralling plot. I mean, all of these adjectives work with novel, story, tale, account as well. You know, so you could say a riveting tale, an engrossing story, you know, an enthralling novel, an enthralling chapter, an enthralling ending. But all of these ones, these guys here, these adjectives, they all mean that the plot is fascinating in some way, mesmerizing. You know, you really become interested in the plot. Very similar to gripping, actually. Gripping means you become really interested in the plot as well. I would say gripping is like these three. It's very similar. So, yeah, and it works with plot. Subplot is the story within the story. Yeah, quite often, I think writers love doing this. I think it's a type of literary device. It's a plot device. Very often there's a story within a story, or a letter within a letter within a letter, something like that. And, you know, the story within the story is like the subplot, really. Quite often there's a subplot, you know, a few other lines of events that go on at the same time as the main line of events. So most good stories will have a few subplots, yeah, so perhaps it's best not to think of it as a story within a story, although it kind of is sometimes. You know, it could be one of the characters of the story starts to tell a story, and of course, that would be a plot within the plot, yeah, because there's a series of events within the plot. So you've got plot, you've got subplot. You can say that the plot is fast moving if it's very if it's not slow, and you can certainly say it's got a slow plot, or the story is developed very slowly. I personally never liked Stephen King, yeah, and for me it was that the plot, it was so slow. I remember trying The Tommyknockers as my first Stephen King book. And by the way, I've seen Pet Sematary, and I think that's a great story, and so I imagine his book is pretty good. I've seen Carrie, and I imagine that book's pretty good. Yeah, I got about halfway through that massive book, The Tommyknockers, and I didn't think anything had happened yet that was scary whatsoever. And so, yeah, that's why I thought his plot wasn't fast moving. Yeah, it was a very slow plot. But you get a fast moving plot as well sometimes, and that's what I like. I like a fast moving plot. I like it when the very first sentence of the book is hooking me into some kind of unsolved murder or something like that. Okay, you can talk about a poignant, sad, moving, or evocative. Now, these are all slightly different, although those two are very similar. Poignant tale is a tale that makes you feel sad. A sad tale is clear, I think, opposite of a happy tale. A moving tale, moving and touching are synonyms, really. When something is moving or touching, it has an emotional effect on you. Yeah, and so that it makes you feel emotional in some kind of way. Maybe not sad, but very often it's quite sad, but maybe not sad, you know, but it makes you feel emotional in some kind of way. It moves you, it touches you. And evocative, it brings forth images and emotions. You know, an evocative story, it might provoke many images, many emotions within you. And yeah, you can talk about something that's thought-provoking as well, a thought-provoking narrative, yeah? So thought-provoking is around as well. It's something that makes you, well, that gives you many interesting ideas, yeah? There are a good narrative is always thought-provoking. It makes you think. So a scientific or medical journal, they both collocate very well with journal. A journal was a periodical, you know, a magazine that appeared every month. And I think it was very often for professional types, and yeah, for scientists, for doctors, you have scientific journals, medical journals, where ideas are discussed and peer reviewed. Yeah, ideas are reviewed by their peers, or work is reviewed by different people, and so they're scientific or medical journals. But If you say she kept a journal, that's a diary, really. So it could be one or the other with journal. Journal did used to mean a diary, you know, a description of what happened on different days of your year. But you do see it used with scientific and medical to mean an important magazine that tests scientific ideas or medical ideas. Okay, you can talk about a compelling novel. This would be something that makes you interested and excited. A compelling novel, a gripping novel, they're very similar, those two. And they're very similar to those three as well. But remember, you have a novel is composed of chapters. There might be 50 chapters, there might be 10 chapters. Yeah, they're the parts of the book that the book is always split into sentences, paragraphs, and chapters. And you might talk about the ending of the story as well. So the ending is obviously the part at the end. What happens at the end? It's very important, the ending. You don't want to leave your reader disappointed. And so this adjective, implausible, it means that it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So this is very negative when usually when you're describing a plot, because you're saying that it doesn't make sense. It's not realistic because things don't add up. Things don't make sense. Yeah, we often say add up for make sense. Things don't add up. Things don't make sense, and so you find it hard to believe. You know, a detective story, a good detective story, ought to be realistic. And there ought not be things which don't make sense. Things, what's the word? Discrepancies, anomalies. There ought not to be those kind of things. And so an implausible chapter or an implausible novel is a negative way of saying that novel doesn't make any sense. Contrived is slightly different because this is where it sounds too artificial, as though the writer has made his characters do certain things to achieve a certain result. And so it sounds artificial and hard to believe. You know, implausible is just hard to believe, but contrived is artificial and hard to believe. It sounds as though the author has tried too hard to get a certain result and it ends up not being believable. Haunting would be very similar to macabre or chilling or gloomy. Haunting, chilling, gloomy, they're pretty similar. You know, haunting means scary, basically, and a ghost haunts a house. And so, you know, this makes sense. Haunting would mean a bit scary. Chilling certainly means it sends chills up your spine, yeah, so it makes you scared. And gloomy, you know, miserable, depressing. An intriguing setting. The setting is the time and the place that the plot takes place in. Yeah, so maybe the setting is the Second World War in France. Maybe the setting is the Napoleon